Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a new series entitled Dealing with Childhood Trauma and the Effects, a podcast of MindCare. I am your host, Rochelle Knight. Dr. Dana Philossaint is a professional counselor whose focus is on childhood trauma. For more information about MindCare or Dr. Dana Philossaint, please go to mindcare.us. Hi, Dr. Dana Philossaint.
Hi, it's good to be back again for another program.
All right, we're just going to jump right in. So today's topic is about forgiveness. So what is the definition of forgiveness?
So forgiveness is an interesting topic because you can't deal with trauma and not understand that that is something that needs to be dealt with. The idea and the definition of forgiveness would be best described by a physician. He's a psychologist from the University of Wisconsin. He's been studying forgiveness for about 3 decades, he says. And he says that it's a process in which of offering something positive, things like empathy, compassion, and understanding towards someone who hurt you. So imagine that. You're offering something positive. It didn't say to someone, but you're offering something positive, empathy, compassion, and understanding to someone who have hurt you or towards someone who has hurt you. So that's the definition that we like to hold on to.
All right, you said something that I really honed in on, and you said a process. And I know a lot of people think that forgiveness happens overnight. Does it happen overnight? Or, I mean, like you said, it's a process. Like how long? A year, a day? You know, what's the normal? Or is there even a normal with forgiveness?
That's a very good question. Well, actually, it is a process for some. Some people, research show, are easier at forgiving than others. Some people have it naturally, the ability to forgive without having to go through a whole process. But for some, it requires the process. It requires time. It requires, learning about empathy, learning how to go about it with the help of others, with the help of God, to be able to get to that stage. So for some, it does require a process, but it is possible for everyone.
Now, I know there are definitely some myths, I should say, out there about forgiveness. Now, what are some of those myths that people hold on to that hold them back from forgiving somebody or an event?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, one of the ones that I know for sure that people hold on to is the concept that they believe that forgiveness means letting the person go or get off the hook, even though they've hurt you. And that is the furthest from the truth, because when you think about it, and Wellington, who is another psychologist, has studied this process as well, he said that forgiveness happens from the inside your own skin. So it's really for you, not for the other person at all. So that's one myth. Another one that I've heard a lot of is forgiving someone is a sign of weakness. Now, if you've ever had to forgive someone, and the same guy, Wellington, he says this as well, you know that is not an easy process. It is such a hard thing. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing about it that's weakness at all, because it's such a hard thing to really let go and forgive in the process of thinking about the person who's hurt you and thinking that you had to just let it go or, get to the point where you can let go of that thought, those negative thoughts. It is not easy, so it is not a sign of forgiveness at all.
Now, I've heard over the years that they say for every year that a person is traumatized, that it takes the equivalent amount of time for them to go through that process, that forgiveness. I mean, is there some truth to that? What have you heard about that?
I personally don't think so, because it's so different for everyone. I've known individuals who've gone through traumatic experiences, and they will tell you that, the minute they've gotten to the point that they realize that the best thing I can do for myself was to forgive the person, is the minute they were able to pass that stage and go to the next stage of life. And for some, it takes some time to get to that stage. So it really depends on the individual and what they're going through. Research is showing that people who have the tendency to ruminate over and over are less quick to forgive. And since that's the case, it's because they're holding on to the grudge and holding on to the feeling that took place during the time of their hurt. So it depends on the individual. And there, again, like I said, there's some individual, naturally, they're more likely to forgive. That's their natural instinct is to forgive.
All right. So how do you find the heart to forgive, those who have traumatized you as a child?
So how do you do that? And again, we'll talk about the process in detail, if you would like, in stages. But in my study with individuals and talking to individuals and processing this concept of how they need to forgive, we found that 6 things that people can do in stepwise that helps them. First is, number 1, identifying that they're making the choice, that they need to make the choice to forgive, because ultimately we always have a choice. That individual has a choice. They can either forgive or not forgive. But the benefits of forgiving, surpasses the idea of holding on to these grudges because of the amount of painful things that it does to you physically. So that's number 1. Of course, with prayer, which is also essential. Research is actually showing that prayer is part of praying helps individuals to get over some of the hurt and also be able to get to the stage that they can forgive. So that's number 1. Number 2 is also to learn about empathy. The concept of empathy is where you learn to turn the evil thought that you have towards that individual or towards the situation to where you can place your mind that perhaps there are things that went wrong with that person. There's something wrong with that individual. There's something that's going on in their lives. And when you see it in that light, you kind of make sense of it, even though it doesn't make sense, okay? You're not taking the thoughts to saying that it's good, that what happened to you was good. It's just more of why they went to that stage. There is something wrong with them. And, of course, number 3 is replacing those negative thoughts with things like you're beginning to see the person as a wounded human being as opposed to stereotyping them or getting to the point that you need them to be judged right away. And 4 is letting God be the judge, because ultimately God will take care of the situation. He says, if you let it go to me, if you give it to me, I will take care of it. And then number 5, and really believe in that too, is keep trying. It is a hard process. So once you keep trying, you realize, okay, I'm thinking about this concept of empathy and compassion and what I need to think towards that person. And then number 6 is ultimately get to the point where you can live your life with a newfound freedom, because it's very deliberating once you get to that stage where you can say, I'm not letting that person hold me captive as a prisoner in my mind any longer. So you can live freely, not holding on to anything that can hurt you physically as well.
Now, is it possible, or have you encountered, maybe this is a better way of saying it, have you encountered people in your practice, maybe let's say a couple comes in and this person refuses to forgive? Have you noticed, does it affect them in terms of cementing that behavior? Like, what are some of the things that you've seen maybe in a couple where one wants to forgive and one does not?
Well, as we mentioned earlier, it is really a choice. It's not something that you can force someone into doing, but you show them the benefits. There are so many benefits when you forgive, because the toxic stress that holding on to bitterness does really hurt you physically. There's a lot of research that shows that once you start to get rid of that anger or that toxic stress that's caused from someone hurting you, your muscles start to feel more relaxed. You're less anxious. You have more energy. Your immune system also improves. So there was one a cardiologist. He published an article in the Journal of American College Cardiology. His name is Dr. Cheetah. He found that anger and hostility is closely connected to heart disease, and it impacts especially those individuals who have a history of heart disease. It impacts them greatly. The outcome is never a good thing. So there's research to back that. When a person starts to forgive, their mental health also improves. Their circulation improves. Their overall depression rate goes down. The anxiety level goes down. So there's a lot of research that backs this up. So you share that with them. You can't force anyone to do anything, And we all have choices, and that's the beautiful thing about it. But when you educate someone, you ask them, what is the alternative? Would you rather to suffer from heart disease and, immune system impacted because you're not wanting to free yourself from that prison that someone has placed you in your own mind? Again, forgiveness is really about you getting well. It's about you saying to yourself, I want to be well. I want to be free. So it's never really about the other person. So that's the beautiful thing about it. So while a couple may come to you, one may want to forgive and the other does not want to forgive, it really impacts them individually. So once you start seeing or showing them that it's an individual story that they're creating for their own selves, then it makes a world of a difference. But ultimately, everyone has a choice.
All right, so what you're saying, because I know this is a really hot topic, and I know we talk about it, but it's really difficult and based off of each individual person. But what you're saying, and I'm just going to summarize what you're saying, is forgiveness is a choice. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely a choice. Absolutely. It's a beautiful gift, too, but the gift is actually to yourself. So it's a choice and a gift to yourself.
Can we learn to forgive?
And that's the beautiful part about this whole thing. And, when we talk about giving people hope when they listen to this podcast, is that forgiveness can be learned and can be taught. We can teach people how to go about it. We can also learn to forgive because sometimes it doesn't come naturally to some of us. There's a lot of research even showing that we can tell people stage by stage. A matter of fact, Philossaint is another researcher that dives into forgiveness, and he sees that people who are from a religious background or even from any religious affiliation, it could be Buddha, Hindu, or Muslim or Christian background, they have more tendency to forgive. Why? Because they pray, he says. He says that prayer tends to boost up their ability to do that, to forgive. And so, yes, it can be taught, and it's about what are you telling yourself. I know the Bible is full of stories about individuals forgiving and how God says, if you forgive others, I will forgive you as well. And so those concepts and ideas in Christianity allow individuals to see that, this is much more than just me. This is something else that God wants to bless me with. If I forgive others, He Himself will forgive me of all the wrongs that I've done. So the ideas that you have around forgiveness also plays a role in your ability to forgive as well. So you create new belief system. You can create new belief system. You can create steps, journaling, the idea, the thought of telling yourself, what is it about this person that caused them to do such evil? It could be, a number of things. They themselves were hurt. They themselves are mentally challenged, or they have issues in their lives that brought them to that stage. They weren't loved. They're trying to find a way out of their situation, and so they hurt others. And they're manipulated. They're allowed their circumstances to manipulate them, and in essence, treat someone else wickedly. Whatever ideas that you can create in your mind about why, or even developing that empathy and compassion and understanding towards the situation makes it a lot easier for you to deal with, and also can aid you in that process of learning how to go about forgiving and being able to move on in your life.
Well, that's interesting. And I really want to go back to what you said before, that forgiveness is not about the other person. It's about the individual. And that you're saying forgiveness is a choice. Mm-hmm. So those are two amazing points there. I know you started talking about it, but can you continue and just go on? What are the steps that you can provide to the listener about forgiveness, to forgiveness?
Mm-hmm. And then again, the steps would be, the first one is to recognize that you need to forgive. The recognition and is very important. And another step would be to realize that you have a choice. This is a power that you have. The gift of choice is beautiful. You can choose to forgive, or you can choose not to forgive. And then you look at the benefits. What are the benefits to me forgiving? And what are the benefits for me not forgiving? You can always do the pros and cons for both ways. And then when you start to understand the research truly about forgiveness, you realize the power that it gives you to free yourself of hurt. It frees you of physical pain. It frees you of mental agony, anxiety, and remorse, or all of these things that you don't want to live with. It frees you from those things. And once you realize that, you want to get to the side that you're saying, hey, it's not a bad idea to forgive. And once you do that, you always ask the aid of God, pray that He gives you the strength to do that. And then start replacing those negative ideas about the situation to ones of compassion and empathy. And then an understanding that, God got this. He ultimately is the judge, and He sees what's going on. And keep practicing it, the thoughts of positive, empathy thoughts, empathetic thoughts, I should say. As you do that, you can go on living your life day by day, knowing that it's going to be okay.
Okay, so you said recognition, the gift of choice, the benefits of forgiveness, and then the freedom that you have when you forgive, and replacing those negative emotions with something positive like empathy. And then live your life. Is that what
Absolutely.
You said?
Remember that forgiveness is really about offering something positive like empathy and compassion and understanding towards the person who hurt you. And another beautiful thing about this, the person does not have to be around to know that you've forgiven them. They don't have to, there's some people who have had hurt done to them by someone that's not even alive anymore. You can literally forgive the person because it's still something that you're doing for yourself. You don't have to tell the person. You can if you want to, if it makes you feel better, but it's never really about the person. It's really something that you're doing for yourself.
Dr. Dana, Philossaint, you gave us some amazing insights. Did you want to talk about some resources on your website?
Well, we're going to continue doing these podcasts if people would share this information out as much as they can to others who are hurt through trauma, traumatic situation that's happened to them. I think it will be very, very beneficial. And as we're developing more podcasts, we're also developing articles for people to share out. And ultimately, if they want more information about how to go about getting the help, we have that resource as well on our website, mindcare.us, that they can look at and subscribe and also buy if they need our book there that has a lot more information on mental health and how to improve your mental health overall.
Dr. Dana Philossaint, it's been a pleasure as usual. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in with us today as we talked about forgiveness. Please go to mindcare.us to explore the resources available and connect with Dr. Dana if needed.
That's right. And also our Facebook page. Go on our Facebook page, like us there, and so you can continue to follow us and our information there. God bless.
All right. Bye-bye.